Before The Last of Us, this German disaster movie proved that the most terrifying apocalypse isn't the one with monsters. It's the one where the people you love simply vanish, and the air you breathe becomes your nightmare. This is The Cloud. Most Germans know it as a classroom assignment, an ominous tale about nuclear power. But they're wrong. This is a visceral, soul-crushing masterpiece that didn't just win awards. It traumatized a generation so deeply, it eventually forced one of the world's largest economies to turn off its power grid forever. This is the story of a teenage girl, a bicycle, and the cloud that changed everything. Hannah is a normal German teenager, going to school, hanging out with her friends. The most important people in Hannah's life are her mom and her little brother Uli. And we also meet Elmer, another character very central to this story. He's the new kid in town. He moves around a lot because of his father's work and is often isolated because of it.
Don't have to tell you how it goes.
That changes when he meets Hannah.
Cola?
It starts with a first kiss, the kind of moment that's supposed to be the beginning of a beautiful story, not the end of the world. Then, the sirens. At first, it's just a test alarm. A boring, routine interruption every school kid has sat through a dozen times. But this isn't a drill. It's the sound of the air turning toxic. And soon everyone realizes that this is the real deal. This is the moment the fairy tale drops and reality sets in. All that's on everybody's mind is where are their loved ones and safety. Hannah and Elmer split up. She catches a ride to her town, and Elmer goes to get his car to pick her up later. They have absolutely no idea what's really in store for them. Hannah gets home, happy to find her brother. But her mom happened to be in a town close to where the nuclear catastrophe occurred. All that's on her mind is getting her on the phone and making sure she's safe. Worried sick, she finally gets her mom on the phone. Contrary to the public health advice of locking yourself inside at home, Hannah's mom tells her to take her little brother and get away all the way to Hamburg to stay with family, before losing connection on the phone. Hannah tells her little brother they will go now and travel by bicycle.
Uli, wir fahren alleine los. Hol die Sachen aus dem Keller, wir nehmen die Räder. Los, komm!
This scene in particular is very jarring. The town is already abandoned, everyone bolted out of there. Seeing cows roam the streets feels more like a long-term abandonment. This is where the nightmarish quality of the movie really sets in. Elmer barely misses them, but this is not just a minor setback. It is absolutely fateful and leads our young characters into absolute horrors. What follows next is one of the most gut-wrenching scenes in cinema history. I will cut the video here as it's very brutal. Hannah just watched her little brother die in an instant. The driver doesn't even slow down. In The Last of Us, we're in the car with Joel, watching the world collapse through a windshield. We feel the weight of the choices he makes to survive. But the cloud forces you to stay on the road. It doesn't give you the agency of the driver. It gives you the helplessness of the victim left behind. It's the story of the family Joel drove past. The ones who didn't get a 5-season arc, just a sudden clinical end on a road. Hannah holds her brother's lifeless body, completely unable to process what happened. And how could she? How could anyone? The rating says 12, but the screen says no survivors. Most disaster movies for that age group would offer a moment of greater rescue, a hug, a transition to safety. The Cloud offers a clinical look at the end of empathy. Minutes after she loses her brother, Hannah is picked up by a fleeing family. There is no warmth in that car. The mother looks at this shattered girl and asks her, point blank, this is the soul-crushing reality of this masterpiece. It doesn't stop to let you breathe. It just keeps hitting you, over and over, until the teenage dream of the first act feels like a lie told in another life. In a cruel twist, Hannah saw Elma enter the train without her. For that she lost sight of the kids she had to take care of. Their parents, now in survival mode, go berserk on her. The horror of the movie is as much about the social decay as the radioactive one. This is the moment Hannah breaks, and it's an honest, unflinching look at what that looks like. But Hannah's journey doesn't end here. Rather, a new life begins. This is an unflinching look at the aftermath of being poisoned by radioactive fallout. As her hair falls out in clumps, the movie stops being a story and starts being a memory. The book this film was based on was written in 1987, 1 year after Chernobyl. For a generation of Germans, the cloud wasn't a metaphor. It was the invisible death they watched drift across the border in 1986. And this movie was the reminder that next time, the border wouldn't exist. Whether you believe this film was the primary catalyst or merely a reflection of cultural attitudes is almost irrelevant. The plain truth is that it became the defining visual autopsy for Germany's anti-nuclear movement. It moved the threat from political pamphlets to the clinical erosion of a teenage girl's life. In the middle of the invisible death, the movie gives us a ghost of the life that was stolen. Elma finds Hannah in this sterile, grey lazarette. He's the only thing that looks like the before. He looks healthy. He looks like the version of the future they were promised before the sirens went off. For a few seconds, the tragedy pauses.
Lassen Sie ihn. Das wird dir helfen. Sind Sie volljährig?
Ja, ich bin 18.
They won't know yet that the cloud is already inside him, too. They just know that for today, they aren't alone.
Haben wir noch Bettzeug?
2 Garnituren.
Beziehen Sie ein neues Bett. Hannes, wir brauchen Dosimeter und Judith.
Everyone knows a nuclear incident is a disaster in theory, but the cloud stops the theory. It forces you to see the clinical decay and feel the total isolation of a crisis that doesn't end when the rain stops. It was this visceral shift from political abstraction to human tragedy that shook a generation and prepared a nation to walk away from its power plants forever.
Aber jetzt guck nicht so.
Up on this roof, away from the doctors and the databases, the movie reveals its real heart. It's not just a story about nuclear physics. It's a study of the human spirit when it's been stripped to the bone. There is a sublime beauty here, to individuals recognizing a shared frequency in the middle of a national catastrophe. They've lost their health, their families, and their futures, but they refuse to lose their agency to care for one another.
Und der Ring? In Millionen Jahren. Was heißt das?
Hawking. Stephen William Hawking, kennst du den? Der hat auf jeden Fall gesagt, dass alles, was uns umgibt, schon mal war und nochmal sein wird. Und zwar in genau 66 Millionen Jahren.
Dann explodiert also in 66 Millionen Jahren nochmal so ein Teil?
Ja, man kann sich über die Theorie streiten, aber ich finde, der Gedanke daran macht vieles einfacher.
Vor allem, wenn ich daran denke, dass du mich in 66 Millionen Jahren nochmal genauso bescheuert in der Bücherei anglotzen wirst.
In any other movie, the arrival of family would be the rescue.
Helga?
Da ist sie.
Hanna?
Das ist meine Tante.
Warum bist du denn erst so spät in die Suchkartei gekommen? Ich hätte dich doch viel eher abgeholt.
Hannes ist nicht ins Netz gekommen.
Mädchen. Mom. Ich hab gedacht, du bist auch wie Paula.
Wieso? Was ist mit Paula?
Haben sie es dir gar nicht gesagt? Hanna.
Was denn?
But Aunt Helga doesn't bring
Steht doch gar nicht auf
comfort.
der Liste.
She
Steht doch gar
brings
nicht
a
auf der
list.
Suchliste. Steht
The
drauf.
news that the mother is dead. Not missing, but gone is the clinical end of Hannah's old life.
Sie weiß es. Die Ärzte haben, wir geben ihr 5 Milligramm. Komm, ganz.
It is the moment the cloud stops being an event and becomes a permanent reality.
Es war ein Unfall.
Hannah is struggling with guilt over Ellie's death. Elma tries to cheer her up.
Was denn?
They dance. It's not a moment of celebration. It's an act of war against the crushing silence.
Los jetzt.
They hide in the million years theory because the next 10 minutes are too much to bear.
Kitschig.
Ach, das ist doch noch gar nicht. Ich habe noch viel Schlimmeres vor. Flugzeuge, die deinen Namen in den Himmel schreiben. Badewannen voller Rosen, Schlafzimmer voller Luftballons. Was denn? Ist doch nur Stromausfall. Was denn? Papa.
Elmer's father, still playing by the rules of a world that was already failing. He warns him not to ruin his life. But Elmer knows the truth. The proper family died long before the reactor did. This is why he and Hannah recognize each other in the wreckage. They were both already survivors of a quiet, domestic disaster. The cloud didn't break their world. It just made the outside match the inside.
Wieso? Wenn's nach dir geht, ist sie doch schon längst tot!
Elmer taken away by his dad. Hannah going off to live with her aunt. She goes to school again, clearly uncomfortable being stared at. But she doesn't hide. Through some twists of events, Hannah and Elmer meet again. But in another cruel twist of fate, Elmer too realizes he's been contaminated. He tells his parents that he can't come to America with them.
Emma!
He also meets Hannah,
Wo warst du heute Morgen?
but lies about the truth.
Ich muss nach Amerika. Wegen meiner Mutter.
Gut.
Leaving her broken anew.
Nichts mit dir zu tun.
Hannah goes to visit her friend at the hospital.
Der sich selber eingeliefert hat.
When she learns the truth, she eventually finds him.
Ich habe auf der Flucht so viel Strahlung abbekommen. Es ist nur noch eine Frage der Zeit, bis ich...
Warum hast du mich angelogen? Elmar! Elmar! Elmar, wir schaffen das. Komm her.
At the end, they return to where it all began. Hannah is haunted by one image. Her little brother, laying in that field. All alone. This isn't a grand, heroic journey. It's a simple, defiant act of honor. reclaiming a brother from a statistic, giving him a proper burial, and a dignified send-off. It doesn't undo the tragedy, but it's something. And something is better than nothing. It's the one thing to fight for at that moment. Like Joel said in The Last of Us, you always find something to fight for. The cloud didn't win. It just stripped away their lies until the only thing left was the truth. That even in the wreckage, we choose what is worth fighting for. The sirens are silent, the cloud has settled, and while the world is still broken, Hannah and Elmer are finally in the driver's seat. Germany has a word for this specific nuclear nightmare, the Super-GAU. It is the greatest assumed accident. Only 5 years after this movie's release, Fukushima followed in Chernobyl's footsteps, proving the Super-GAU wasn't just a movie plot. Soon after, Germany would begin phasing out its nuclear energy for good, ensuring that for the next generation, the cloud would only ever be a movie, and never a reality. For those who were never just a statistic, for the people behind the numbers of Chernobyl, Fukushima, and the nuclear incidents history tried to forget.
Wenn du träumend liegst in deiner Welt, wie du sie nennst, wie weit kannst du sehen? Wohin willst du gehen? Beim nächsten Mal, wohin? Wie weit kann man sehen?